Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. The Monroe County Council discussed the timeline for new jail construction at their meeting on February 25th. According to project manager Scott Carnegie, construction should begin in July of 2026 and be substantially completed in 2029. During public comment, community member Seth Muchler urged the council to reconsider the jail construction before it begins. He noted that Bloomington does not share the same ideals as Washington, D.C., and this could be an opportunity to fight for local values.
It is our job as a community with values that we want to uphold, values of compassion, values of equality, values of diversity. It is our job to live those values and to protect against attacks towards those values.
Muchler emphasized that he believes the funds for the jail could be better used in Monroe County. Next, Financial Solutions Group municipal advisor Greg Garatas provided a deep dive into the county's financial status. He highlighted the strong general fund balance, but cautioned the council not to expect the same returns in the future.
But keep in mind, again, to take note, that if you go back to any of those numbers, most of it was made up by interest income. And I guarantee you, that is not going to be sustaining. There's no way.
Garatas urged the council to plan ahead with its budgets, focusing on the future, noting that considering only 1 year at a time is how counties, quote, miss the boat, unquote. At the Bloomington Board of Public Works meeting on February 25th, the Parks and Recreation Department requested temporary lane and alley closure approval to accommodate roof repairs at Bloomington's historic Buskirk-Chumley Theater. Engineering field specialist Kyle Baugh presented the request.
The alleyway closure itself would encompass only the property lines behind Buskirk-Chumley with all the appropriate MOT there. The lane closure would only be at the beginning and the end of the project for material unloading and reloading, and then that would be in the eastern lane of Walnut. So a period of like 4 hours apiece for each of those at the beginning and end of the project.
The project involves a partial alley closure behind the theater and a flagging system in place for lane closures. Lane closures would occur when materials are being loaded and unloaded into the building, which should last 2 to 4 hours at a time. While Kirkwood will have an existing lane closure, Walnut Street will remain open during the repair.
That lane closure would be on Kirkwood prior to any of the closures taking place, the dining closures, that is.
These closures would occur from March 1st to March 31st before outdoor dining on Kirkwood begins on April 4th. Before the board had an opportunity to vote on the request, the meeting was unexpectedly recessed for unrelated reasons. The vote to approve the lane closure was postponed. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Bloomington Board of Public Works will be on March 11th. At the Monroe County Community School Corporation Board of Trustees meeting on February 25th, board member Ashley Pirani provided an update on weeks 4 to 7 of the State House legislative session, starting with comments regarding Senate Bill 1.
Senate Bill 1 is not in the best interest of the school corporation and would significantly reduce revenue from property taxes. Our corporation could be cut from a minimum of $8 million to a high of $32 million over the next 3 years, starting in 2026. And it would be catastrophic to our ability to operate. Passage of this piece of legislation would result in significant staffing and programmatic cuts to our schools.
Pirani also shared information in regards to House Bill 101, which relates to school budgets.
HB 1001 pertains to our state budget, which shows mixed results in the recently approved House Republican version. The House Republican version of the state budget, which was approved by the Ways and Means Committee, includes a funding formula for traditional public schools that will only increase our school budgets by approximately 1.3%. This rate is below the current inflation rate of approximately 2.5%. As a result, school corporations will face challenges in managing their operations, debt service, and education funds, and in their efforts to manage teacher salaries and benefits. Specifically, we would be forced to reduce programs and staffs if these cuts come to pass. Another concern is that the $160 million appropriation for curriculum materials is being rolled into the foundation component of the funding formula rather than remaining a separate line item dedicated to districts. Rolling these dollars into the foundation funding formula is very misleading and gives the impression that schools will receive a significant increase in funding, which is incorrect.
Pirani also condemned a bill requiring public schools to share their funds with charter schools.
Starting in 2028, SB 518 requires all school corporations to share some of their operations funds revenue with certain charter schools. Charter schools are an educational option that was created by legislators. As such, local taxpayers should not be required to fund a state-created option. The state should find an alternative way to fund them. We are opposed to sharing public dollars with charter schools because we are routinely experiencing decreases to our operations and debt fund service. Passage of this piece of legislation would decrease public schools' availability to provide transportation, programs, and would require significant cuts in staffing. Rather, we believe that the voters have the right and should be given the opportunity to respond to this idea through the ballot box.
Superintendent Dr. Mark A. Winston concluded the meeting by sharing an update about the financial situation of MCCSC in light of declining enrollment, as well as state and national policy changes.
The decline in enrollment has resulted in a loss of approximately $17.2 million in revenue that we did not receive from the years 2021 through 2024. Let me repeat, $17.2 million that MCCSC did not receive as a result of the decline in enrollment. Our funding relies on student enrollment and is deposited into the education fund, the primary fund that is utilized for paying teacher salaries. Based on our October 2024 enrollment counts, we are projecting an additional loss of approximately $5.2 million before the end of the school year. If you examine the data from across the country, you will note that even while school districts have experienced a decline in student enrollment in the past few years, staffing levels, in most instances, have remained the same or increased. MCCSC is no different.
She shared that the district would be carefully and efficiently managing its budget going forward.
Ongoing financial management strategies and planning will be essential. Continuing to look for new sources of revenue. Continuing to identify ways to optimize the resources that we have available to us. How are we building up our reserves? Making sure that we are operating in a much more efficient manner than we have perhaps in the past, and engaging in strategic staffing. Those are the next two areas that we're going to focus on, and we'll continue to move forward between 2025 and 27, but we're not confused because of the other headwinds that are facing us. Employing this strategy will help us deal with our enrollment. This strategy alone will not fully address the state and federal headwinds.
She reaffirmed that the district could focus on what she calls, quote, sustained excellence, unquote.
Our commitment to our community is that we will continue meeting the needs of our children. We will continue to have highly qualified teachers and staff in front of our children. We will meet state requirements. And we will be flexible and adaptable in our use of all resources. We will have no choice other than to be flexible and adaptable. We will do this by keeping our students at the center, and we will make decisions in a respectful and caring manner. We value transparency, honesty, respect, and integrity. Those principles are non-negotiable. We believe that transparency is the route to accountability. To that end, I commit to providing quarterly updates on our progress, and I will do so at quarterly board meetings so that the public knows exactly what we are doing and how we are progressing toward our goal.
The MCCSC School Board will meet again on March 25th. The City of Bloomington Utilities Service Board met on February 24th, where the board heard a request for professional services with Crow LLP for design work at the City of Bloomington Building and Trades District Tech Park. Utilities Director Catherine Zager presented the request.
We are designing a surcharge for this district, as was agreed upon some point last year. Essentially, there's stormwater infrastructure there that if it were more private development, we normally would not maintain. However, we're in a position where it makes the most sense for us to maintain this infrastructure, so we would like to charge a surcharge in order to pay for that service.
This surcharge would be paid on top of normal stormwater fees. The request was approved and is now pending City Controller approval. Finally, the board heard again from Chris Wheeler with a request for a proposed update to CBU purchasing procedures.
The main change that we are bringing to the board this evening, and the reason why we are bringing this to the board this evening, is because our new controller, as of last year, has decided to allow us a little bit more discretion with regards to purchasing that isn't public works related and follows statutory procedures to allow us to purchase on the open market up to and including $25,000. Our old limit was $5,000, so this is a rather significant jump. Statutorily, we would be allowed to purchase on the open market all the way up to just shy of $150,000, but we're at least up to $25,000 at this point. So everything up to that amount for supplies and services, or supplies and services if it's a combined contract for both, if we are less than $25,000, then we can just purchase on the open market without seeking quotes from at least 3 qualified vendors. Once we get to 25 and above, we're back to needing to at least send out emails seeking quotes from at least 3 qualified vendors. Doesn't mean we have to get 3 quotes back, we just need to seek quotes from at least 3 qualified vendors. So what these purchasing procedures show is that breakdown, so that everybody at CBU, when they want to make purchases, they'll know what they have to do. If you're under 25,000, just go out and get it. If you want to, then between 25 all the way up to 150,000, we have to follow the procedures that are shown in that second area in step 3. And then when we hit that magic $150,000 mark and above, then we're dealing with actual competitive bidding and purchasing pursuant to statute.
The request was approved pending City Controller approval. During the old business portion of the meeting, Board Member Jim Sherman made a comment on the State Utility Regulatory Board.
We had discussions a couple of times in the past about how some cities do not go through the regulatory board to get their approvals. And kind of recently, in light of the regulatory board's decision about Duke Energy, I kind of lost even more faith in them. They basically gave Duke everything they wanted, despite the fact that there were tons and tons of public comments at various meetings throughout the state that gave them reason not to give Duke everything they wanted, especially their continued use of coal, and they didn't abide by previous, I don't know if they're regulations, but previous promises that they'd made. So I would like to suggest that at some point we look into what that process is like for disengaging ourselves from the regulatory board.
The board also heard from the MS4 program coordinator, Liz Carter, who gave a report on construction project closeout.
So the way we close out projects is very much tied to the planning department. The utility, we issue reports, we do inspections, but we don't have we don't have a voice in going to the building department and recommending final occupancy. So that's what you hear contractors, developers talk about, is wanting their final C of O. We don't have the ability to do that yet, maybe one day. So what we do is planning will hold their recommendation for final occupancy until we have also decided that a project is totally closed out. So the MS4 we're looking for is their post-construction BMPs. Are those in good working order where we feel good enough to just walk away from the project? And has the project been stabilized? So that flows through planning, but ultimately it's the responsibility of the contractor and the owner to get this closed out. We certainly do reminders, but you'll see when we get into the dates of when some of these projects started and when they got closed out, you'll see that it can be kind of a lingering process.
Carter shared that in 2024, the program closed out Tri-North Middle School, Creek's Edge, New Hope for Families, The Standard, and more. The Ellettsville Redevelopment Commission met on February 24th to update the West Side and Riverfront economic development areas. The board held a public hearing to amend resolutions for the areas. Superintendent of Richland Bean Blossom Community School Corporation, Jerry Sanders, emphasized the importance of partnering with the town's redevelopment efforts.
As a school corporation, as a superintendent, has always been very important to me that we, as a school corporation, be excellent partners and understand that the town council and all the departments for the town of Ellettsville, as well as the school corporation that serves 96% of the area students, that we should work together as we move forward to try to better our community.
Assistant Superintendent Matt Irwin asked about potential grants and partnerships to fund educational opportunities. He expressed concerns about the impact of tax increment financing on school enrollment and facilities as the area grows.
And so we're hoping for your guys' consideration and thinking about funding a grant through the RDC to the school corporation to fund those types of specific opportunities, as well as just that continued consideration as far as if pass-through for AV or some of those things. As we look at, we did a demographic study for the school corporation to look at what we should expect for kids to come to the school corporation over the next 10 years. And we're one of the few school corporations in the state of Indiana that is looking like we're going to grow enrollment over the next 10 years. And 70 to 80% of schools, according to the demographer, are going to lose kids over the next 10 years, and we're one of the ones that are going to gain. And so one of the things that we want to be mindful of is the impact of the TIF as far as how it relates to us being able to keep up with facilities, which we're doing a nice job of that now, but with the residents that would move into that area, of just making sure that none of the residential is included in it, which I don't believe is, but I think some of the pieces of like apartments or those types of complexes would be captured inside of the TIF, which does bring students to our area, which would increase the need to make sure that we have available space for those students. So just looking at the possibility of pass-through AV, or again, I liked hearing about the ability for you guys to work with us on possible projects that could be in partnership with the TIF as well.
Board members expressed support for working with the school system while adhering to statutory limitations on TIF funding. The Ellettsville Town Council discussed creating and filling a position for a new deputy fire marshal at their meeting on February 24th. Fire Chief Kevin Patton said that the position is more accurately a fire inspector.
The current one we have, fire inspector, is extremely busy because that's a lot of area to cover, especially when you do it annually. And this would be a second person, and they also will be the backup building inspector for the town of Ellettsville.
The position was approved unanimously, along with additional funding for the Personnel Services General Fund. The next Ellettsville Town Council meeting will be on March 10th. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.
All I know about this thing is what it looks like and where I found it. In the spring or early summer of '83, my brother and niece and I
to expel the waste because in architecture you have volume outside of the body in a very short spaces that invite light. It brings in a great amount of
when you come to a painting, it's on a flat surface, but you have all the same